Development with a minor in public sector management here at the University of the West Indies, Mona. He also pursued a Master of Science in Governance and Public Policy, as well as a postgraduate diploma in education. He is a former resident of Taylor Hall, and he also served as a resident advisor. He was or is an adjunct lecturer in the Department of Government. He's a senior negotiating officer at the National Workers Union. In addition, he resided on Butcher's Block for 5 years, and then during his time as an RA, he resided on Flat B for 2 years. He's also serving presently as an executive member of the U Alumni Association. In addition to Mr. Dexter Martin, we have Mr. Devereen Rowe, who is a stalwart student advocate, serving presently as the Guild Vice President of Services and Special Projects for this academic year. Last academic year, he served as the Taylor Hall Chairman, and prior to matriculating to UWI, he attended Monroe College, graduating in 2017, while also serving as a junior counselor for St. Elizabeth during his time attending Monroe College. He's presently pursuing his Bachelor's of Science in International Relations and Criminology here at UWI. He also has a proclivity for sports, serving as a Jamaica cricket national representative in 2012 and 2014. In addition to Mr. Dexter Martin and Devereen Rowe, we have Miss Christina Williams here as well. She pursued a bachelor's, and there she is. She pursued a bachelor's degree in international relations and a double minor in social policy and development and public policy and management with a language emphasis on Mandarin. She's a senior law student at UA presently, and she is studying an executive postgraduate diploma at the United Nations established University of Peace in Global Leadership and Diplomacy. She spent over 10 years as an advocate, serving ardently in humanitarian efforts, extending services across multiple sectors such as health, education, and many more. She has received the Governor General's Achievement Award for Excellence and the Road to International Service Above Self Award. She also served as part of the Commonwealth Youth Council as a UNESCO Youth Ambassador, a students' rights spokesperson for the Jamaica Union of Tertiary Students, and a student development practitioner with the Office of Student Services and Development. Last but by no means least, we have Mr. Pete O'Sullivan here as well. He was an undergraduate student at UA in the years 1963 to 1966. And at the time that he was attending UA, Taylor Hall was an all-male hall when he came in. It later moved to a mixed gender hall, and he also met his wife while residing on Taylor Hall. He pursued a Bachelor of Science in Economics, and he served as Guild Treasurer in his final year, that is 1965 to 1966. He served as a sub-warden, as he was called at the time, now RA, from about 1974 to 78. He was the longest serving warden, now SSDM of Taylor Hall, from 1992 to 2010. In addition, he pursued postgrad studies in management studies here at UA. He studied export marketing in Germany and did an MBA at Bar University in the United States of America. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the introduction of our 4 erudite speakers tonight. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Rashad.
All right. So, now that we are here discussing the legacy of Taylor Hall under the theme Reflections and Realignment, specifically focusing on preserving the legacy of the hall throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond, I first want us to take a trip down memory lane. What is it that your respective first-year experiences were like overall, in any order?
All right, so I'll go first. My first year experience was an exciting experience. You know, as a first year, you come to university and you're excited. You don't know what to expect. So before attending university those days, I was a bit confused of whether or not I should attend college in Jamaica, college in the United States. I was about to go on a track scholarship, and then the negotiations broke down, and I decided to attend the University of West Indies. I did not know which hall I was supposed to attend. I got some advice from the then Vice President, Mr. Nicholas James, and he advised me that I'm supposed to come on Taylor Hall. So that was when I decided to come Taylor Hall. I had a few friends, they were at Chancellor, so I was a bit confused because, you know, most Monroe College old boys, they tend to go to Chancellor. But nevertheless, I made a decision, took a chance and came to Taylor, and I definitely did not regret taking that chance. throughout my first year, I was very active. I participated in practically every sport. As the GCC wanted somebody to participate in a sport, I would be there. Even sports such as tennis that I have never played in my entire life, or table tennis actually, I still took the chance and participated in it. One of my standout moments, or moments that I probably don't want to remember, is orientation.
Mhm.
At orientation, the night of orientation actually, I was even more confused because I'm saying like, what is this that I'm doing right now? I'm coming from high school as a sixth former, you know, you feel like say you're a big man, then you come to the
Mhm.
university and that kind of calm me down. So I came here and I, while going through the orientation process, the night of orientation, I was wrapped up in like, you know, what we're wrapped up in. And then going on to the stage now and about to say my why. And it's like I totally forgot everything that I should say. Looking, I'm
Mhm.
staring at a million persons and they're just staring back at me. And then I hear subs. And I had to go back and come again and come again. So it was an enjoyable experience though, for me, my first year.
Mhm.
Which year was the
Right. It's
parent?
all about building memories and connections. Right. Okay. Thanks for sharing, Mr. Rowe. Is there anyone else who'd like to share? Christina, perhaps?
Okay. So my first year was a little challenging. I moved on hall late,
Mhm.
very late. I think I moved on hall maybe, I think it was a day or 2 days before orientation night. So you know what that meant. I would have had to learn the book in 48 hours and all of that. So that was a little challenging for me. But even before that, I came into university not really sure if I was ready financially because it was just my dad at the time, and daddy was away on the farm work. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with the farm work program. And I remember leaving from Portland, right? I had somebody who, sorry for me, put me in our car. I can never forget, 2 orange basin, um, a bag of groceries, and I moved on to hall, and I was just worried because I was like, I had the deposit for hall, of course, but we never see the tuition hit. So even though I was there and I was trying to make the best of the situation and I was trying to learn the book quickly and I was trying to get familiar with my why and all, as you know, Dev spoke about, I was still very concerned about, was I ready to take on university and was I ready to pay my fees? So it was a rough few, I would say a rough month between that August and September period. But as I came though, I can never forget the sisterly talks that they had. You know, we used to meet in rooms on the block. Of course, I'm a Falcon. We used to meet in rooms on the block, and my senior sisters would talk about their challenges and how they're able to overcome and are still, at the time, of course, they were still overcoming their own challenges. And it kind of, not a kind of, it actually empowered me and made me feel as if, you know, I'm standing on the shoulders of great Taylorites who came before me, Taylorites who I was currently brushing shoulders with, even though at the time we weren't called Taylorites, you know, we weren't fully Taylorites just yet. But yes, and I felt that the spirit of the hall, that pride, that blue and white pride, would push me forward to make it despite whatever challenges I was having. So that was what I would say that first year experience was like for me.
So my first year was 2007, and I came in right after Hurricane Dean and just before the 2007 general elections. In fact, my induction night was September 2, and election day, general elections, was September 3, 2007. And there was a lot going on campus. I remember Christina talked about her bath pan and so forth, and somebody took her. I had to take the bus from Manchester to come to you with my suitcases and everything. I had to get up early in the morning, take the bus. It was a Sunday morning. They had parents' orientation. So my mother and I came up. She went to parent orientation. I came into Taylor Hall by myself. Some seniors greeted me at the gate. They took us into immigration, quote unquote, immigration. You were processed. And then the blocks, how they did it at that time, the persons representing the blocks would ask you what you can do, and then they try to haggle over you until one block finally get you. And I Butcher's Block B, I had the privilege of living there. First year was very exciting, getting up in the early mornings during the orientation process, both Huey, Taylor Hall, and Butcher's orientation. We had a senior named Listerine, senior female, Listerine. She was the one who used to do the physical help the first years with the physical exercises, and that used to be fun. Learning the songs, especially the songs against Chancellor Hall or Chunsla. Learning those songs whenever there was a sporting competition and it was time to vibes up. No matter that you had, for example, Rexall that was 800 strong, or the other halls, there was no hall that could outshout Taylor Hall, none, right? And it was just an important experience being a first year student in Taylor Hall. When I was there, my first year, Damian Crawford was a resident advisor over for Block C, but he was from Butcher's. I had the privilege of meeting people like Dr. Knife and so forth in my first year, and they passed on valuable information. They shared their experiences. First year was fun. Some things obviously can't be said, but first year was fun. That's it for me.
All right. Thank you for sharing, Mr. Martin and Christina. Those are some very interesting stories. Mr. O'Sullivan, do you have anything you'd like to add? Your first year experience?
Well, the last comment is very instructive. Some of the things can't be said. As you know, going way back to those 60s days, we had a very interesting week of orientation. Let us use the word interesting. But it really served to bond us as Taylorites together. Now, as you, I think, indicated when you read my bio, was that first year, Taylor was still all male. And I was placed on Block F. Now, the thing about it, all the first years were on the new block. So can you imagine? We really had fun that first year. And what really caused a lot of we really didn't do much work, I have to be frank with you, because among us was about 6 or 8 medical students that all they had to do was one subject. Maybe they had failed chemistry, or their high school did not offer it, or physics, one of them. So they had nothing to do that year practically. And so the entire year was spent just having fun. Honestly, it was really something else to try and get yourself to class or to do some studying, because really they were being all first years on the new block, apart from about 3 or 4 seniors, because they would have a day black rep and maybe 1 or 2 others. All the 120, said about 115 students on the new block were all first year. So it was a lot of fun. It was an unforgettable year, I have to tell you the truth. A wonderful year.
All right. I'm very thankful to you all for sharing those nuggets of personal experiences. Some very interesting stories you've all shared. But I noticed that the common theme unifying all the stories that you've shared is that Taylor Hall has had some positive impact on you all, whether it be in terms of student leadership, developing a camaraderie with friends, that kind of thing. So I want to focus on those 2 aspects for this next discussion. What is it that you would look at in terms of student leadership, where camaraderie with friends, relationships, anything at all you can identify that Taylor Hall has done for you, and what is something else that you would do differently if you could go back in time? So let's go in the same order again. So, Mr. Rowe, You can share first.
Okay, so in terms of student leadership, Taylor Hall has fostered my growth because when I looked around me and I saw that many persons were involved in leadership, I sort of was motivated to go into student leadership. There are a lot of guild members on the hall, and even the year following that, there were guild members on the hall as well. That really motivated me. Also, the first year experience program, because week in, week out, they have different sessions geared at developing you. That really assisted me in developing as a person, being more talkative and everything. Because when I came in, I didn't really want to talk. You can ask Sarah about it. He could tell you I wasn't really a talkative person. But I sort of came out of my shell, and that really in regards to student leadership. What was the second part of the question?
Right, so it's asking if there's anything you can identify that you would do differently if you could go back in time.
Really and truly, I have no regrets, honestly. I have no regrets. I really enjoyed my tenure here at Taylor Hall.
That's good. It's very good. Miss Williams, you're up.
Well, I think the difference with me and Deb is that from I came in, that very first day when I moved my basin in, I was very talkative, hence my hall name, First Response. I mean, it's funny now when I say it out loud, but yes, I was always talking. That is known by all. But I will say this, Rashawn, what really motivated me, yeah, even though I came in very involved, I will say that I did come into UE already very involved, but what pushed me further was that you could not escape the legacy, right? Everywhere you went, literally, even if it was not on my block on F, even I went to Excellencia, I went upstairs to Galaxia, there were so many examples of women and men who championed Taylor Hall while they were here and long after. And I will tell you, jealousy burned inside me because I was like, listen, I don't want to just come here and just hear of stories. I want to also leave my own legacy. And I used to say that to my roommates and my friends that, listen, it's not enough for us to just hear bedtime stories. What about when you leave in 3 to 5 years? What will be the story said about you? And so while I heard about the Lisa Hannahs and the Rolf Gonzalez and even Mr. O'Sullivan here, while we heard about them, I said, I want people to hear about Christina as well. And so while I balanced getting involved on Taylor, so I did, for example, the Topaz, I was involved in with EAC. I also ventured off,
last year,
ventured off the hall as well and tried to get involved with activities off campus, off hall, because I didn't want to just be amazing at Taylor. I also wanted to fly the flag high on campus as well on behalf of my hall. When you talk though about what would I do differently, to be honest with you, I think I would have probably just stood in the moment and embraced it more. I think that's one regret I truly have from my time on hall. Reason being, I think I probably moved too much into, I was always looking forward to the next thing. So I did pageants at one point. So for my first year, I was doing a lot of pageants. I was Miss this, Miss that, Miss Falconia, Miss Tayloria. I did Miss UE. So I was Miss everything. And that was first year. Then by second year, I was off to the guild, doing guild secretary. Then this year after that, I ran for guild president. So I was always moving and then trying to be, also have a very high academic standard. So I felt as if I could go back, I would just sit in my room, sit around with my sisters, cook some more food on the block, lime some more, and just feel the moment. Because most of my sisters are no longer on hall. They have long moved off, maybe 2 years now. And I only can talk to them via phone. And sometimes I pull memories, but it'd be nice to have even more memories than what I currently have. So that I think would be one regret I have, to be honest.
Because you the founders we panel discussion.
One of the concepts that you learned earlier at Taylor Hall is family. On the blocks in the hall, you had to know where your brothers and sisters were. You couldn't be eating food and somebody on the block not able to eat your food. Family is what Taylor Hall taught me. And it didn't matter whether you were from Stallion or Butchers, Attica, or Roos, or whether you're from New Block. it was a family. It taught you that particular value of looking out for each other. And even today, in my own life, building those relationships, building those connections with people, have paid off dividends. Taylor Hall also took the least among the apostles and made them great. When I came to Taylor, almost everybody who was anybody in UWI was a Taylorite. From the top administration, going to the departments, going even to the halls of residence, because the Preston SSDM was a Taylorite, the Chancellor SSDM was a Taylorite, and also it was Taylor Hall that ran the world, and the world was just simply not enough. And it motivated you.
Yes,
it motivated you to want, as Christina was saying, to want to be somebody great. In Founders Week, we used to have I Remember When, and they would go back through the memories, and you were saying, this person lived in Taylor, that person lived in Taylor, this is my idol, and I never know that he was a Taylorite. And it really motivated you to want to become somebody great, and you want to participate. They've mentioned about participating in all the sports. I think, like, if you take 90% of Taylorites, you will see that at some point they tried several things that they didn't know they could do. They were leaders in this club, they were playing sports that they only heard about when they were in high school and so forth, because Taylor Hall made you want to try to do something. Other than being a resident advisor in Taylor Hall, I was exported. And you know, when Taylor has talent, it can't keep it to itself. We are kind people, so we lend other people our talent, right? So I was exported to Irving Hall for 4 years as a resident advisor. And it is what I knew from Taylor Hall that I carried over there. And I wasn't trying to build a new Taylor Hall or anything, but it was because Taylor Hall had the program for greatness. And I had to use what I knew, I brought it out there, and I think that it helped very much. So family and just inerting the greatness in you, those are two things that Taylor Hall does. Regrets, there's a song that says, regrets I have a few, but then again, too few to mention. Right? No regrets. Everything was for me in Hall was a learning experience. And I've learned the lessons very well from my Hall experience. And I'm encouraging everybody who is a new Taylorite, learn the experiences, even in your failures and so forth. Learn what is there to be learned, so that you can build yourself to be the greatness you ought to be.
Very well said. Very well said. Mr. O'Sullivan.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you frame the question around leadership and excellence, because today I sat down to just make some jottings. And those were, and the other word, camaraderie. Those were the 3 words that I wrote down. That's the real legacy of Taylor Hall. Excellence, leadership, and camaraderie. And as Dexter, I pointed out, I think it was Dexter, / camaraderie / caring. Because nobody in my time and up to now could ever be hungry in the hall. It's impossible, because we wouldn't tolerate it, you know. First of all, we would be so sensitive to know that there is somebody that lacks sufficient funds or whatever, or don't have the skill yet, whatever. And we would make sure that that person is looked after. And then, of course, you heard some references. The legacy of excellence is unbelievable. I mean, I don't know how much is shared with the students these days, but I heard some of the names mentioned. I mean, when you go down to university, start with the I don't know how much time I'm permitted, but this one really stands out for me for Taylor Hall. When you go down the list of first, even within the university, the first UWI graduate to be appointed principal, Professor Gerald Lader. The first UWI graduate to be appointed vice chancellor, Rex Nettleford. The first UWI graduate to be appointed chancellor, Sir George Lane. And you go down the line, it's all like that. Which hall has had prime ministers in 4 different countries: Trinidad, Barbados, St. Vincent, and Jamaica. The list of the excellence is unbelievable. And it continues even now. We have over 10% of members of parliament that come out of Taylor Hall. First class honors. You know, it is interesting. Taylor Hall was known as a hall for sports. We won everything. And till the point, sometimes at even student service meeting, Dr. Reynolds, who was in charge, he used to get upset with the other halls and say, what happened? You're not interested in trying to even win one trophy from Taylor. But I decided at that time that I was going to just check for comparison purposes our academic achievement, right? Because the sports was there, right? Taylor is the hall of halls and everybody accepted the sports. And so I went down to exams and I got printouts over about maybe a 5-year period of all the persons. I counted all the persons with first class honors. And every one of those years, between those who lived on and those who lived off, Taylor Hall had the most first class honors. So it surprised me, but this was a fact. And so the excellence not only was in academia, was in sports, but also in academia. And then you heard the point about exporting the RAs. The leadership was so strong in Taylor Hall that once you went to a meeting to select RAs, because that's how it developed as over time, right? And the other halls needed RAs. They got the RAs out of students from Taylor Hall. I mean, those who are around with you there now can give you the examples. You heard Dexter going to Irving for 4 years. If you went to any of the other halls, you are more than likely to find a RA that had lived in Taylor Hall. It's unbelievable. And you know another thing that I'm trying to remember the names, but they're slipping me now. You know, I suspect that Taylor Hall has the most hall chairpersons who went on to complete a PhD degree. I had the names and I can't find them now. But it is something that somebody could quickly check for me. The excellence just overwhelms me, truly, of Taylor Hall and the camaraderie. And one other thing now that I don't hear anybody mention, and I think it is slowly receding into the past, is the influence of Jagai. How can we leave out Jagai in a discussion like this?
Yeah.
Yes, Jagai is Taylor Hall. Jagai is where the greatness comes from, you know. But I know that some time ago, Jagai was sort of given a minimalist role because of certain concerns persons had for how we sort of dealt with Jagai. But believe me, Jagai used to help to bond many of us. Going there and just to have some point of reference from the very start of the hall coming down. That Jagai grave was really influential in many of us. And by the experience in Taylor, I don't know how to describe it. It's just the most wonderful experience I've ever had in my life, being in Taylor, truly. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for sharing. Very insightful. I can mirror everything that's been said. My first experience was unfortunately cut short due to COVID-19. But for the time that I was living on hall face to face, it was truly a remarkable experience. The bonfires, the domino playing late at night until the sun rose sometimes, the beat seasons, ring road, everything. It was an eclectic experience. Yes. And speaking of which, we actually have a question from the YouTube stream. And someone's asking, this is a question from the Creators rep, Julian Richards. She's asking, what was the first thing that you did after becoming a Taylorite?
Well, the first thing I did after becoming a Taylorite, we went on the block and went into block orientation. That was the first thing.
The first thing I actually did is I walked on the grass.
Oh, yeah. You're mute, Christina.
Christina, your mic is muted.
Oh, right. I was laughing at Dev because he said he walked on the grass.
Yes. He was not a senior.
What was the first thing I did? I think I went into block orientation. We had to go into the common room. Yeah, we had to go into the common room to talk about our wives. Yeah, we did the why well. So yeah, when I was a kid.
But the next day, everybody would have been out in their bling, going to school as a proud Taylorite, no longer an imperfect Taylorite.
Imperfect.
Now a Taylorite, and you were proud to be wearing your bling and your string bag, going into the school as now a Taylorite, and then the seniors can't talk to you anymore.
Right. Mr. O'Sullivan, do you remember the first thing you did?
Not really, but I wanted to make a comment on something else. I'll try and see if I remember. But just to Christina's point about being very active when she came in, I remember Mr. Hamilton calling me and said, Mr. O, I want you to see this freshet. This freshet is going to go places. Mr. O, mark her down. And of course, it was Christina you was talking about. He said, Mr. O, and you were so effusive about Christina. So, Christina, I'm glad that you have fulfilled the promise. And no, I understand when you say that you didn't get time to chill and that that's what you missed, that you're so active. But you really played a very role in the hall that was really very much appreciated, and in the university generally. We owe you a lot. So thank you very much for that sacrifice you made to be so active.
Proud of Mama C.
Thank you so much, sir.
I want to know if Christina or Deverine slept in class on the first day after orientation, like so many of us did.
Yes, yes. Why are you loading us up next, right?
So on the topic of things that were done as Taylorites, so this is actually a very interesting question that I want to ask all of you. During your time living on Taylor Hall, for some of us, it would have been at a point that was a much different era for Taylor Hall than others. Some of us would have lived on Taylor Hall more recently, such as Christine and Deverine, or it had entirely different era, as I said, like Mr. O'Sullivan and Mr. Martin. So during your time, residing on, no offense meant, by the way.
Yes, that's right. They can't be with me.
Yeah.
Decades apart.
I'm closer to Dev and Christine.
Yes.
Right. So during your time residing on Hall, do you think that it's a case wherein the residents of Taylor Hall have changed somewhat from the time that you resided on Hall to now? And if so, why or why not?
I don't know if it's changed. People are different, times are different. When I came into UWI, Mr. O'Sullivan, for my 3 years of undergraduate, Mr. O'Sullivan was my SSDM. When I was doing my master's, Mr. Hamilton took over as the SSDM. But things were changing at the university. I remember experiences where orientation was seen as a bad thing, and they were trying to clamp down and so forth. And people have had to adapt. So I'm not sure necessarily where if it's that people have changed, but the times have changed, and you also have to adapt to it. For culture to survive, there has to be adaptation. And so certain things might not be done the same way, but once the outcome remains the same, then you're good to go. So one of the problems, though, I find Taylor Hall, we don't have a written history, so to speak. So it is passed down from generation to generation. But if anything changes, people don't know that I'll give you an example. I remember when I came back from over Irving back to Taylor Hall to be a resident advisor, and I was teaching them some of the songs that I learned, and people were saying, "What? Yo, that's not," and they didn't know it. And it's because we don't document a lot, because the 1 year group would pass on the songs, and somebody would know it, and then it would pass on and pass on. So I think part of the thing, we need to document, write some of the history, so that even if whatever happens, like for example, COVID has come now and the oral history remains not necessarily, but you'll have documentation or videos or whatever, so that wherever there's a gap, you can pick up after that.
Right.
I don't think there's anything I could say differently than what Dexter just delivered. I really endorse that point that we need to document the traditions and the culture. I mean, even if the way of life may change or evolve because we're adapting to different times, that certain core aspects of our legacy must be documented. That's actually I never really even thought about it. I mean, yes, we do have the books, we have the Freshers Guide that we normally have, Freshers Guide for the block and Freshers Guide for the overall hall. But I think we should probably have something that is dedicated more so to the traditions of the hall. I'd actually love to see that happen, and I would support it as well and help. If somebody wants a committee want to take that on, as my capacity as RA, that's something that actually would work on and support.
That is true. I agree with the views of Christina and Dexter as well. Areas that I have identified that have changed would be such as the spine time, because students no longer want to stay on the spine. I remember when I came in, we had to stay on the spine for hours, but now persons are a bit skeptical about letting students stay on the spine because they complain more and they would tell their parents, and we don't want to have any legal implications on us. So possibly, chairman, after speaking to Mr. Hamilton, we decided to eliminate the amount of spine time that the students would have. So that would be one of the areas that I see that possibly changed from when I came in. But I agree with the point made by Christina and Dexter as well, stating that we definitely need to document something so that the legacy can pass on.
Mr. O, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes. In fact, Mr. Hamilton and myself have talked on more than one occasion about this. And the importance of the documentation is not lost on him. And I think he's really going to make it a serious project to get it done, because it really must be. I mean, persons coming on and to the hall in subsequent years and just generally, it must be known. This is the greatest hall, It's not just, we're not just saying it, When we look, for example, and the students from other blocks must forgive me, but when you look at some of the achievements on Block B, academically, right now, there's no other block in the entire university that has produced so many outstanding academicians from one block over a certain period of time. It's impossible to conceive that could happen in just a small set of students right there. Listen, it really needs to be documented, honestly. If you go through, and it happens on other blocks too, but I just think of that because of so many that came at a particular time from Block B, but it happens throughout on the other blocks too, and it's been lost. We need to really document it, and all the things that we have pioneered. We need to document, that Taylor Hall is the first, and up to now, as far as I know, the only hall to take a football team over a number of years to Miami, to Florida generally, to play football against universities up there. Taylor Hall is the only hall to take a netball team, play not only in Florida, but up in Toronto. I don't know how many persons know this, and I don't think that any other hall has ever followed this example. So these things need to be known. Even the little simple thing as a soup kitchen. Taylor Hall started it for exams and so on, and made sure that come exam time, especially, everyone could be assured that come around 9, 10 o'clock. I don't know how it has evolved. You would have something to eat before you continue beating books.
The engagement, the engagement with the communities around UWI.
Yes.
Mentorship
the
program.
mentorship program. No, I mean, it's subsequently other halls have taken on that. Even the matter of going off campus for hall dinner. Taylor Hall started that. Taylor Hall went on a boat, a cruise for hall dinner.
My first year, I remember that.
You went on it?
Yes, my first year.
Oh man, if Damian was your hall chairman, it's a sure thing that you went on that. Man. So I mean, we have always tried to do things differently that would the students would have a different experience. And when there was, for example, those boats that used to go to Lime Key, they had special, forget what the boats were called. We used to take the first year students as on one of the trips would be to go on a trip to Port Royal and Lime Key. So all of those things, we can't lose the history of all of those things that we have done because, times change, so you do other things, but it's good to document some of the things that have been done. I know, for example, Mr. Hamilton has started his honor society, which is very critical. So we need to make sure that we start definitely to record all of the things that have come out of the honor society. The chorale. We started, I don't know who is here, who might know the first year of the chorale. Let me say it wasn't a very successful debut for the chorale. But now, look how many awards the chorale has won, And persons need to document this. Believe me. Because persons won't know when we say we are all about, persons going to ask us, and the student going to look dumb and can't answer because they don't have the history to refer to, How many persons still know that Taylor Hall is still the one and only hall in the entire university that produced a Nobel Prize winner?
Yes.
These things have to be documented so it's not forgotten. This is serious thing, You live in a hall or you come from a hall that has the only Nobel Prize winner that university has ever produced. Something to big up, So I think that we need to really get the writing started. It must be documented. I was even looking in Barbados, Sir Richard Cheltenham, who just resigned from the Senate in August. A big Taylor, right? That was president of the Senate, served in the House for over 20 odd years. Persons need to know these things, so that they understand the legacy that we're talking about, the greatness of the hall, truly. And as I said, the only female prime minister at Trinidad Azza live right in Taylor Hall. In fact, anytime she comes to Jamaica, she asks for a tour. Mr. Hamilton can tell you to go look at her whole room. So, things like this, we need to highlight and document so that it's there for all to see.
Agreed.
Right.
And then, of course, the business ventures that have started in the hall, the startups, the incubator. We had incubator in Taylor long before UTEC started. And you saw UTEC has started a professional incubation system for startups. And long before business development office came in at UWI, we started to do it at Taylor to encourage our young entrepreneurs. So them things need to really, be recorded.
I think I just got a history lesson.
I'm saying, Christine, I agree.
I just got a history lesson.
I understand exactly where you all are coming from, redocumentation of the history. And that actually correlates with the question that I was planning to ask right after this, but I'll put a hold on that one and go to the question from the YouTube stream first. This one is directed to you, Mr. O, and Brandy Miller is asking for more details for you to share the story about how it is that you met your wife here on Hall.
I understand how to pick up that part of the bio. Well, as you heard that when I came to Hall the first 2 years, it was all male. And I'll never forget, believe me, it's like yesterday when we got the news in summer of my second year that the university was going to convert New Black to females. There was almost a rebellion and a riot in the hall because we were not prepared to change from an all-male hall to have
mixed
females
sex.
come on. Believe me, the men said, no, this can't work, no way. Well, university tricked us. Hear what they did now? They sent the nicest, prettiest, loveliest, most wonderful females. I think they must select them 1-1. Believe me, to come to Taylor Hall that year. They were unbelievably, just wonderful. And we sort of lost our opposition very quickly. Not only that first year they came, 65 was the first year that we won football. I don't even know if that is known, I remember. That's the first year we beat Chancellor and win the football trophy. Of course, they wanted to take credit for it, but what can I tell you? And so, you see the ladies come on the block and you start to look around, I had a little head start because my wife had a very good friend that was, I think she was living in Sequel. I think she had come on a year before. And I was playing football, the pick-up football on Natural Stadium. Mm-hmm. And I saw her, I knew her. She was going to do medicine. I don't know if she had started or she was just accepted to do medicine. And I saw her with this young lady coming towards me. I knew her from outside of campus with this young lady and asking me if there's any way I could get a room for this person in Taylor Hall. And that was really how I met her. Just like that, playing football. And the friend asked me, you recognized it was me, and we started to talk. And she had her winsome with her, and she said to me, do you think it's possible to get a room in Taylor Hall for her? So, the first mistake I made in Taylor Hall, you know? No, that was the best thing I ever did.
Mm-hmm. All right. That was a lovely story, very amusing. And so, get back to the question I was planning to ask initially. You guys had all spoken about how it is that we need to ensure that we document the history of Taylor Hall because you have a very vibrant legacy of accomplishments, basically being an incubator for success and an environment that's conducive to excellence in all regards. So, given that we're in the midst of a pandemic that does not seem to be concluding at any time in the foreseeable future, some projections suggest that it will be here until 2021. What is it that you each think can be done to preserve the legacy of the hall during this time and keep the vibrancy, keep everything that the hall is renowned for going full speed ahead? So Dev, do you want to start this one?
Okay, sure, I'll start. Actually, so far, I must commend the hall chairman and all other members of the committee for their continued efforts. I have definitely felt their presence and seen the hard work that they have been putting in despite our current situation. But in answering your question, I believe that we have to start from the block level and we have to ensure that the blocks remain relevant, because oftentimes we overlook the blocks, and what we have to recognize and understand is that Taylor Hall itself is recognized because of all 7 blocks. So oftentimes we talk about unity, and we believe that we're not supposed to mention the blocks, but in speaking about unity, we have to accept that we all are diverse, and in being diverse, that's how we really come to be united. So it all comes down to the blocks. So I am imploring on each block rep that is watching this tonight that you just remain relevant on social media and push, just motivate members from your blocks, because you have direct contact with them. The hall chairman will only have contact with committee members. So you are the ones who the legacy of this hall really stands on.
Look, we have enough members in our alumni to reminisce about their days here, talk about the legacy of the hall. You don't even have to come off campus to get it. The principal, the deputy principal, the principal for the Five Islands campus, Prof. Stephen Vassian is still here, and you go right around, you will find enough persons within our society, the outgoing president of the Court of Appeals, Justice Dennis Morrison, and on you can go and find the persons who will do little snippet videos just to share. We'll have to post most things will have to be done via social media. So whether we have WhatsApp groups or our Instagram pages and so forth, share little facts. Mr. O gave us some gems a while ago, some did you knows about Taylor Hall. Let these new students meet through whatever means those builders of Caribbean society that are affiliated with Taylor Hall. And the songs, probably somebody needs to link Daddy G or whoever,
Yes,
but the songs, right? Taylor Hall is written in the mountains. Yes, my friends, it is chiseled in stone. We are fighting our enemies from inside and outside. We're Taylor, we're proud, and all of those songs that you have the others. You have some that you can't really to sing
on the live stream.
Yeah, we have one Blue Bling and the new thing, white shirt, we not like dirt. That's how Taylor roll. All of us, we win it. In a white and blue, we did it. We score them goals to the limit. And I can't get any more of it because it gets worse. But the songs are important and they tell the story.
Yes.
Here at Mona, everything is getting hot. There's a fall of false competition. Crazy Irving, yeah, sing cold tune slap. Come to test the great Tayloria. But what a sad affair, Taylor Hall never fear. Cause we come in with vibes and stamina. Cause we walk them and we flap them on ring road. In volleyball and cricket and netball. No matter what them come with, we better. Taylor Hall done make history, I'm on a boy. Taylor. And you go on and go on. The songs tell the story. So those things we need to revive. Get some people who can sing the songs, to sing them, share them, and so forth. I think that will help.
Right.
And sorry for disturbing your ears with that one.
Oh man, that's important.
Yeah, it was fine. It was fine. Mr. O, do you have any input?
No, I think you can't underestimate the point that Dexter just made about the songs and the vibes and up, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The thing is this. I was really thinking about it a lot. The fact that right now on campus, in the hall, is a mix of students from several blocks. And I have been trying to rack my brain how we can reach out to those students. Because I want them, even just as much as I want the Taylorites to know the history, I want those who have come here for the semester or for the year to get some of this indoctrination too. I want them to become our ambassadors when they go back to their halls, to spread the word, how that they have just spent a semester or a year in one of the greatest places they could spend it in for the year, because I believe that we have a job. I think we have an obligation for them to know it too.
Yes.
I don't want them locked away in the rooms and don't get exposed to some of our culture while they are here. I know that everybody I hear Samson tell me everybody locked down and you can't see somebody, but I would be happy if those who are around could make the effort to share some of this with those strangers who are among us, because they need to know,
Some new converts.
Yes. And by the way, saying that, it is so interesting to see a Monroe, a past Monroe student sitting in the Pelican Lounge in front of the listing of the hall chairs and the wardens.
Yeah.
That is an unusual sight to have a Monroe person there. Welcome, sir. I remember Mr. Hamilton telling me about you coming into the hall from Monroe. As you rightly said, Chancellor Hall used to be the accepted route for Monroe persons, but I'm glad that you decided to come, and I'm glad you have had a wonderful experience in Taylor Hall. Thank you very much, sir.
Actually, the hall chairman now is a Monroe old boy as well.
So I understand that you have started a legacy, your own legacy there now. And I don't know how the chancellor is reacting to this.
They don't exist anymore, Mr. O.
Well, yes, it's out of business right now, no? Yes.
Right. So
Taylorites are known for upsetting the balance,
Yeah.
always rocking the boat. So I actually have a follow-up, a two-parter to the question I asked just now. It came to me due to Dave making mention of the unity that needs to be fostered among the blocks, and the fact that the blocks are the pillars that support the hall's weight and its legacy going forwards. So two parts, as I said. First, what is the impact given that given that we're in an entirely online modality going forwards for the foreseeable future? What impact do you believe that this will have, be it negative or positive, on the aspirations as a whole going forwards? And two, what is it that can be done in this period wherein we're all socially distant but trying not to be socially disengaged to foster a greater unity among the blocks, given that there's always a great deal of rivalry among the block of blocks comes to mind, for example. So anyone can go ahead and give a response. The order doesn't matter this time around.
I mean, Block of blocks can still be held, it depends on what you do. There are several, we used to have, for example, though it's banned now, but we used to have shout out. It was a song competition. Dev and Christina don't know about that. But it was a song competition where the blocks used to make block songs and hall songs. Interestingly enough, quite a few of the older songs we sing came out of the shout out experience. The winning song would be taught to the first years the next year and so forth. We can have competitions that are more creative, so they might not be sport activities, but you could be creative in the activities that you come up with and still have block of blocks competition. Dev had mentioned the primacy of the blocks in the hall unity and the hall culture, and I think that needs to happen right now, where the blocks need to be promoted as well as the hall can leave out the hall. We need to promote the blocks, their activities and so forth as a part of the suite of opportunities given by Taylor Hall. There are going to be challenges and not everything can be remedied. For me, I don't think 1 year will erase 68 years of legacy, but we have to be creative in how we engage, and it shouldn't be a temporary thing. We have to plan for the future. We don't know when COVID will end. So if the modalities in which we engage each other, we have to think more creatively about those. And even plan, for example, for next year, if COVID still exists in the way it exists now, how will we do orientation? Because I don't think it's something we should cut out because of COVID. We have to find a way in which we are going to orientate new Taylorites. So some things might be lost for this year, but for next year and the years to come, we have to sit down and look about how we are going to offer the programs we want to ensure that the students get the information we want them to get and the outcomes we want are seen. So that's my view.
I also agree with Dexter completely. We have to take on a long-term approach, and not just a long-term, but a very decisive one in terms of how we tackle COVID-19 in respect to maintaining traditions of the hall. I think there are opportunities, of course, though, because, we find that there are opportunities to have students in one space, warranting, of course, that we can get them there, because even though we may say you can join Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever else you utilize, there's no guarantee they will actually engage. And we've actually been seeing that as a person in charge of service and civic engagement for non-residential students and having to manage that platform for students daily. I am seeing where students, even though they can access, and even if they have the devices or the internet, they choose not to, for different reasons. Some are overwhelmed by being online all the time. Students are facing mental challenges, feeling isolated from their friends, etc. So there are different reasons. I think what Dev said earlier about, targeting the block reps will have to play a very important role in this, because they would have to ensure that they tap into the students regularly to say what's happening, how can we engage, and to maintain that engagement. Also, I want to also plug here the commuting students as well. Let us not forget them. Right now, based on what the UE has said, we're about 97% of students online. And so the term commuting student is changing. I've actually said it to the university recently that we're going to have to redefine what we call a commuting student while we're in COVID, or if we continue to be in COVID, because I think we're probably going to have to move from commuting versus residential to saying just non-residential versus residential. And as a result, we don't want to lose these thousands, or let me say hundreds of students, because if we're going to say we're just going to focus on residents, that means we're focusing on maybe 50 students, if so much. And as we said, most of these students that are actually living on Taylor are not even original Taylorites. They're here from different halls. And while we're trying to, get them over, as Mr. O said, we still have to ensure that we don't forget our students who cannot come onto campus. So please, I am saying to us here as a Taylor family, let us not forget our commuting students and our students that cannot return to hall for different reasons. The next thing I'd like to plug here as well is that when we do engage our students, we have to ensure that we provide alternate opportunities for them to develop the extracurricular aspect of their development. And I say that because, once again, I like to talk about it. We talk a lot about our legacy and what we did in the past, but we want to also ensure that these students can also create their own legacies. Staying home online and stuck in your room, it limits the opportunities for you to do that. We don't have clubs and societies active as much as we used to. Certain competitions can't be held anymore. What outlets are providing for our students to still get involved? That is something that we also have to tackle as a hall going forward to ensure that 10 years from now, we won't only just be able to talk about up until 2019 before COVID happened. We'll still be able to say that these students, even regardless of COVID-19 and being online, they were able to accomplish these things as well. So we also have to provide those outlets for our students.
Right. Well stated, Christina. Mr. O, anything to add?
Yeah, well, what I'm wondering, what is happening now? Before this happened, do the various blocks have their block committee set up? Are there block reps and treasurers and secretaries on each of the blocks, or nothing like that happened this year?
Those were selected primarily after the advent of COVID-19.
So they exist. I mean,
they do have committees for this year.
Okay, because I think that's how we have to start, to try and encourage the committees to be active, absent but active, and maybe work along with the RA to keep something happening. I mean, I just can't off the top of my head think of how, but to find some way to keep them engaged and not lose touch. You have a wonderful word that you use here, disengage. We don't want that to happen, that they have become disengaged. It's a serious thing. So we have to find some way, encourage those committees that not to see themselves as irrelevant, but as even more relevant this year, because they have the added responsibility of maintaining contact and being a link between those on campus and those who are off campus. So I would encourage the RAs to work with those hall committees and try and keep the spark going through the committees, to the students. And of course, we should encourage the students too, especially those that are off, since they are spending the time off now. Maybe they are even having closer links with the persons in their communities, assuming that they are back in their communities. And maybe it would become a very good recruiting tool for the next year group of persons to come to Taylor Hall. They should be feeding us information and good prospects to come in next year, assuming that next year is a better year, So we could ask them, charge them with that activity, but someone that really fits the mark of a Taylor right, introduce them to the hall and encourage them to apply to come to Taylor Hall next year. That could be another way to stimulate some interest.
Right. Thank you, everyone, for those responses. Everyone agrees that we need to seek to foster great engagement, not only on hall, but also off hall in the various communities, and more so as to ensure that there's a preservation of everything that Taylor Hall stands for. And I appreciate that. Now, the final question I'd like to ask you all is, based on all the discussions that have been occurring ever since the advent of COVID-19 and even before, as well as the things that came to light during this panel discussion tonight, what are some policies or programs that you'd love to see implemented on hall, be it face-to-face or even via this online modality, based on all of your experiences as well as the discussions that we have had as well? Anything at all, be it something related to student development, greater inclusivity, no matter what it is.
The only thing I would say is, earlier I had said that in Taylor Hall is a family. That is what we do. Family is what we are. And I know, if I know Mr. Hamilton well enough, I know that one of the concerns he might have is those students who may not be able to go to their classes because they might not have the tools required.
Yes.
So a laptop,
Tablets or so.
a smart device. And I think as a whole, that is something we have to think about. The blocks should be able to provide that information. Honestly, of the 38 men who live on butchers or whatever, there are 5 who are not able to come to school this academic year because they don't have the device or they don't have the money. On new block, the same thing and so forth. And then see how best, whether through the alumni or through whatever services that can be offered through the university, wherever, ensuring that those persons get the equipment they need or the resources they need to ensure that they continue their education. I know for some people it's a very rough time right now. Some people, their benefactors, the people who pay the money for them to go to school, may be laid off, right? Or fired because of COVID and all. Some people can't get to go on farm work. Those who went, students who used to go and work and travel, not be able to go to. So it's a rough time for a lot of students. Part of who we are as Taylorites is to do our best to help those among us who can't help themselves. So I think that's somewhere to start in how we go forward.
Right.
I agree. I agree. Student welfare is of utmost importance in this time that we're operating virtually. So we have to focus on areas such as financial assistance, credit assistance, and for the students that are still traveling to campus and have face-to-face classes, possibly transportation assistance. So these are the areas that we need to focus on as a whole. So these are initiatives that the Hall Committee, along with the RAs and the SSDM, can possibly take on, because we understand that the digital divide, it is real. A lot of students can't access internet. I have been in classes where they have been experiencing these difficulties. So we see the need, as you suggested, we can work through the block groups because they would have direct contacts of their block groups, and then they could pass on those names to the hall chairman, and then we could work from there.
All right. Thank you for sharing. Christina, you look like you have something pressing to say.
Well, not really pressing, because I think that both Dexter and Dev hit the nail on the head. We're all Taylorites, great minds think alike. What I would add though is, I think and this is not just for Taylor, even though we're talking about Taylor, but I have to plug it for, I think what a university needs to ensure that we consistently have is psychosocial support for our students continuously. Of course, in terms of Taylor, we have to ensure that where students may be falling through the cracks, that we catch them. And that's at different ends. So that may be through the RAs, the block reps, the overall administrative committee, but not just to catch them in the sense of, you're not able to come to school because of a device, because of internet, but also, some of us are feeling really isolated. Some of us are terrified and anxious about the future. And we're just, using your word, Rashawn, we're disengaged, not just because of a device or internet, but just because we made space on there. So we made space and really dire so. And I think a lot of, because we're so focused on the material aspects, which are very important, mind you, we tend to forget about the mental aspect of the student. And I'd love to see a little bit more. And I don't just mean to have a Zoom session and we're having workout activity and we have a speaker talk about the importance of mental health. Those are really good, but that doesn't really fulfill the support that I'm speaking of. I think we probably need a helpline or hotline, or probably just set up a WhatsApp line from the secretary's office or some other EST officer or something, to say that if you're a Taylorite and you need support, you can reach out to this WhatsApp inbox, and if we can help you directly, we'll send somebody to assist. I think those are very practical but important things that we need to have on all for our students. So that's one. The other thing I would say is that we already have the infrastructure. So of course we have the EAC, we have Leadership Academy, etc. We should not let these type of co-curricular activities fall into disrepair. It's very easy for us to just turn into just having a bag of talk shops online and sessions. Once again, also important, but when we look at the impact and the ability to keep students engaged, it after a while it loses its potency and its impact, because students don't always want to come to session and listen to somebody for 1 hour, right? Students want to have real activities online. So for those existing clubs and societies on Hall, I think you're probably going to have to rethink how you deliver your activities. Don't turn them into just talk shops, turn them into workshops so students can feel engaged, as we go through the semester.
Well said. Well said.
Very well said. Mr. O, as usual, anything to add?
All right, if just before I add, just part of the history that I left out, and I know if Fire is listening, he would never forgive me, is our musical history.
Yes.
And somebody really need to talk to Fire for him to really chronicle it fully. Taylor Hall had a show named Countdown, and we had bands and all kind of things. I don't remember all the details, but believe me, we were the #1 hall on campus for music and musicians. And so I just wanted to mention that before, so it's not left out of the thing. No,
Right.
what was just said by Christina is so important. We talk about the students who are not engaging now, and we just see like almost like a statistic, and not as like a real person that we need to reach out to. For a hall that had such a vibrant mentorship program to Augusttown and Mona and other communities. This is the time to have an inward one, because
Yes.
I know many churches have divided up, for example, their members list and given it to various persons in the church for them to keep calling members, just to keep in touch, just to say, hi, how are you? How are you doing? And maybe it is time that we actually really try and do it formally, that we are in touch with every student from every block. And if it's even once a week, they are sure that somebody will call and say, hello, how are you managing? Is there anything that we can help you with? I really believe that there are persons. I mean, we have read it on the news that and I remember when I was there that many students, when you had some emergency and they had to go off campus, would come and plead with me. They say, oh, I can't go home. Home is not the place for me right now. That is not the best place for me to ride out whatever is the emergency. So some persons might really be in some difficult situations. And I think it is our obligation right now to find a way to reach out and touch everyone, because some that we might feel are not needing of it might be the very ones that need it. So if we could find a way to get the list and divide it up, and it's not any big thing. You have 20 students on a list, or 10 students, depending on how you divide on the block, and you just run at least once a week to get a call from you and you say, oh, is everything, is there any issue that we can help resolve for you? I think it's critical here because, as I said, the illness is one thing, but the social implications and mental implications are going to far outweigh the physical over time.
Agreed.
So, to add to what was said, particularly the point Christina touched on with the clubs and societies and such, I can speak not for the Hall EAC, but for the Guild EAC, in that not only working as students to craft talk shops, as she said, but also to devise some programs and initiatives wherein we can actually engage students during this time, given that we understand that social media fatigue is a real thing, and going to Blackboard Collaborate classes online every morning and then going to these sessions in the evenings or nights does tend to get exhausting and wear on you at some point in time. I'm not so certain and up to date with what the Hall EAC is planning, but our Hall EAC is a very brilliant creative thinker, and I'm sure she has some good initiatives in play that she will implement over the course of this academic year to assist students. So that was actually my last question for everyone, but I'm opening the floor now to any questions from the YouTube stream. So if anyone has any questions, now is the time to ask, and I'll direct it to the panel. They seem to be a bit shy tonight.
You have people on it like the great Nicholas James, former Hall chairman, and I'm sure He must have a question.
Well, they're being unusually tight-lipped. No questions have come in so far, but I'll give them some more time in the meanwhile.
There's just something I wanted to say, Rashawn, for Taylorites, watching here, whether you're a seasoned Taylorite or you're a new Taylorite. I would say that a true Taylorite, there's no one definition of a true Taylorite, in the sense that, of course, we're all known to be successful in whatever we do and we're powerful individuals, but there is no set way. So, for example, when I came to Taylor in my first year, I was at first a little shy because I thought that to be a successfully true Taylorite, you'd have had to be very good at sports. And the only thing I know for run is to run my mouth, right? I can't do anything else. So I at first was a little shy, a little gun shy about that. But then I realized that, different skills, different talents, different attributes make up this very colorful, even though we're blue and white, of course, but it still makes up the legacy that we have as as Taylor Hall. And so don't feel, ashamed of your abilities or your talents. And also don't be afraid to go out there and to fly your flag high. I've always said on my block before, while I was living there, before I moved off because of presidency, I said to my sisters there and the entire new block, I said to them, excel here first at home. But after you have done that, don't be afraid to excel outside of the halls of home, because a lot of the persons that you heard Mr. O talk about is that they went outside of the hall and they also did great things on campus and even great things after. So don't feel like you must only stick to home to be successful and to be considered a true Taylorite, right? You can also contribute to hall, to university life, as well as to even the life of your community, as in the outside communities, and to your country. So I will always encourage that from Taylorites, because I want to be able to say, well, that person I live with on my block, she's now this big thing, or he's this now big thing. You understand? You don't want to just blaze out while you're on hall. Like, oh, you're this incredible person on hall, but then you don't go out to do more. We want to see you champion causes in your own right outside of hall as well. But don't feel like, the legacy of Taylor is limiting you to just be one kind of person. Yeah, politics, culture, leadership, whatever industry, etc. So fly your flag high, man. Yeah.
All right. It's funny that Christina made mention of stepping outside of your comfort zone, because I remember in my first year, I am not an athlete, disclaimer. Dev can actually probably speak to this as well. I actually, during Block of Blocks, participated in Ring Road. Man, I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I did it. Couldn't breathe for a while afterwards, unfortunately, but I did it nonetheless. So it's just to add to the fact that, as everyone has said so far, Taylor Hall is an entity that forces you to step outside of the comfort zone, outside of that box in which you tend to constrain yourself, and discover new horizons. And despite the fact that we're in this COVID-19 period, we can, of course, strive to ensure that this great legacy, this great vibrancy continues. So on that note, we have two questions. One is from the present Deputy Hall Chairwoman, Miss Shanine McKenzie. She's asking, what differences do you want to see happening on Taylor Hall, and what is it that you want to see remain the same?
Well, it's two sides of the same coin for me. Taylor Hall must continue to be a progressive space, and so that is constant but changing. Rigid dogmas are not what we are supposed to be about, but it's about developing the holistic development of the human beings who come into Taylor Hall. That means certain things will remain the same, and of necessity, there will be change. So for me, it's outcome. Once the people who come into Hall don't leave the same way they come in, but they are progressively better, then whatever means by which we do that that is what I want to see. So if it means orientation has to change or remain the same for that to happen, then fine. If it means what we do with our blocks and so forth has to change or remain the same, fine. For me, the process is important, but not as important as the outcome. And once we have the outcome, better than how they came in, I think that should suffice.
And it's justifying the means. I understand.
In this particular case.
Right. All right. Anyone else have anything to add to that?
Well, what I would like to see change is the clubs and societies. I would think, like rejuvenate the clubs and societies, but it didn't reach anywhere practically. What we have realized over the years is that the activeness of the clubs and societies and the hall itself, they're not really active anymore. So that is one area that I'd like to see change. However, the vibes of the persons on the hall is what I'd like to see remain, and also the camaraderie that is displayed by Taylorites.
Okay. Christina, Mr. O.
I want the hunger for success to remain the same. You know, there's this dominance about Taylor that I've really grown to admire. It's like I remember when I was running for Guild president, and you know, even though I ran against two males, when I thought about the fact that I had Taylor behind me, I was like, so who them? Like, I'm a Taylor, right? Like there's something about it. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It gives you this feeling of invincibility. You can do anything, and you can walk through UE virtually or physically and feel like you have thousands of people behind you. Probably, I don't know if we reach thousands in terms of alumni, but I feel as if we have this force behind you. You know, so that let the force be with you. They say that in Star Wars. That's how I feel as a Taylor, right? So I want that to continue, and I want it to be maintained. What I would want to change, I don't say I want anything to change per se, but as I am Deb said, I'd love to see club societies, you know, being revitalized and students feeling that being involved is a part of their birthright. You know, you pay all this money. You see, you're gone virtual and you're still paying all that money. There's no decrease, right? There's no decrease apart from miscellaneous. So it's a birthright. Take it. If you're watching, I'm telling you, please make use of your time on hall, right? Take all the opportunities that you can get. Take everything you can get, please. It's your birthright. So that's what I'd want to see. More students feeling like they should take everything that is being offered to them by the hall.
Christina, to add to what you said, I just want to say this Taylor song. Dominance, never stop. Taylor, don't sit down in a back. We're moving to the top, to the top. Yeah, but anyway, continue.
All right.
I hope to someday have that broad. Yeah, I hope to someday have that broad song catalog. All right, Mr. O, anything you'd like to touch on as well?
Well, one thing that I hope remains is the Taylor swagger. As Christina said, you know, we have never felt ourselves inferior to anybody. In fact, we feel that we are superior, and I think that I would never want to lose that. And I say it's not based on pride without any facts to back it up. You know, this swagger is based on the fact that we are the greatest, and I would really love that to continue. It's not for me to say what needs to change. The present day students and those who are closer to the action, they can make those comments. But I really hope that the new students coming on really get a full appreciation that they're coming into a situation, to a space that for 68 years has dominated university life. And they, right from day one, they become comfortable that they are now required to adapt to that and to perform so that that legacy can continue.
Mr. O,
yes,
I would love for you to tell them that story about in the 90s, I think it was 1990s or early 2000s, with that football match against Chancellor and how we ended the match before it started. I think you need to just how great we are as a people. Just tell them that story.
Well, you know, you're talking about a period of really of serious dominance in football and in sports generally.
Mhm.
And the year I think you're talking about is the helicopter year.
Yes.
So we had we had used various ways and means to get to the field for the match in different years. And then that year, Dr. Bruce, better looking, and Vampire, Dr. Ronald Robinson, said, no, this can't work. The karting and the motorcade is not what we're going to do this year. This year, we're going to end the match before it even starts. We are arriving in style. We'll have the motorcade, but we'll have cheerleader and our mascot come in a helicopter and arrive at the field in a helicopter. And I told them it's impossible. I said, where are you going to get helicopter from? How are you going to arrange it? And I really thought that killed the idea. Lo and behold, Chancellor is there waiting for the match to start. And that was another thing too. Made sure that they were there waiting. And all of a sudden, out of the sky, there's this whirring sound. And all of a sudden, we see a helicopter come right over the field. And certain things coming out of the helicopter onto the field, you know. But I tell you, as I said, the match, that was the end of the match right there. They were so shell-shocked that they forgot that they had a match to play. And that was it, you know. They got a sound trashy.
Yeah.
So it is these kind of things that the hall is known for, you know, unusual, out of the ordinary.
Our female football team won consecutive for 15 years.
Something like that. That is a record that I don't know that anybody can really approach.
The one football, Hall of Falls football competition for 15 years. And those are some of the things. And Taylor Hall doesn't always, one of the things that we don't always have the best players, the best whatever, but we have heart. And I've seen sports days. Where Taylor is down by whatever, and we say, all right, a man I run all 5 races and him tired, and him decides say Taylor cannot not be in this race. Him gonna get up and him gonna run, and him probably the 4th and other team, and your team just start pick up speed, and by the time you look, Taylor win the race. Those are the things that sometimes not even the best players, not the best athlete you have, but the heart is there and the love for all and cheering you on. A few years ago, we were I went to a volleyball match down at the bowl. We were playing ELR Towers, and they had some tall people and some people from the Eastern Caribbean who were playing basketball along and so forth. And we had some regular Joe, some of them just learning to play volleyball and so forth. And our chant, we were just chanting, just simple chanting, you know, just chanting, and blue and white is always right, blue, and all of that. And then we started to build the vibes. And our team, which was losing the match, they just felt the vibe and they just suddenly started to play better and eventually won the competition. That spirit that will not die, Falconer. That spirit that will not die. Black G says something about enduring to the end or whatever it is. Guts of butchers, you know, stallion born leaders. That sort of spirit, you know, that sort of spirit is embedded in the Taylor Ride. And so even as we are going through COVID right now, that Taylor Hall spirit is what will get most people through, because you are taught that sort of the endurance through orientation and all of that. You are taught that, and I think that is what will get some of us through a period like this.
Right.
And if I may, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm saying it's for me, some of the memories, especially of the female dominance, I can never forget that at one time, at the same time, on the 3 different female blocks, on block E, you had Dr. Paula Dawson. I don't know how many of you know her, but she is a very prominent doctor and a serious sports person. On block F, was Emily Crooks. Leah, Emily Shields now. And on black, she was Dorothy Hudson Maggie. I think Dorothy name changed, I don't remember. Doctor. And those three became the best of friends, but the most serious, fiercest of competitors for the black. And it was out of that, I don't know, a spirit came and knew black because sequel at the time had a very dominant sports history. But those three determined that it was going to turn around. Liat, as I tell you, Emily Shields, Paula Dawson, and Dorothy. The three of them, it's unbelievable the remarkable change that took place on New Black. And from then, the dominance never stopped from that time.
Thanks again for sharing. The last question comes from the Taylor Hall secretary, Sandy Miller, and she's just asking for a reiteration of the suggestions as it relates to ensuring that the unity among the blocks on Taylor Hall, especially as it relates to external elections, is actually maintained and even deepened. So I'll direct that one to Dev in particular, by virtue of him serving as immediate past hall chair and that being something of responsibility of his at that time.
Can you repeat, please, Rashan?
Right. So Sandy, the present Taylor Hall secretary, was asking from the YouTube stream for a reiteration of the suggestions as it relates to keeping unity among the blocks, especially for things like external elections. I'm assuming she's referring to guild elections and such.
Right, so most likely for this upcoming semester after this one, the guild elections might be facilitated online again, considering what the university is going to do in regards to school. Operating on a virtual platform, as we have seen based off the previous election, it is very difficult and a tedious task. I'm sure you are a part of the process, so you would know. It is tedious. However, we have to ensure that we maintain a social media presence because social media is key in this point in time. And as Dexter had mentioned, we have to ensure that we maintain constant communication with our various block members. So this would be the role of the block representatives to maintain this level of communication, whether it be by contacting these persons via email or simply mentioning talking to them in the block groups. So these are methods that you can use and ensure that communication is maintained throughout the hall itself and specifically the blocks.
All right, thank you very much for responding, Devereen. And on that note, we are at the conclusion of this very lively, very animated panel discussion. I want to extend my thanks to all four of you for being here. Thanks to Mr. Peter Sullivan and Mr. Dexter Martin for sharing their respective experiences, giving so much detail as it pertains to the great legacy of the hall over the past 68 years, the accomplishments, some of which I didn't even know myself. I also have to thank Mr. Devereen Rowe and Ms. Christina Williams for giving a different but similar perspective on the matter. And thanks to everyone overall for their contributions to this very inimitable discussion. I also have to thank all the viewers via YouTube, everyone who tuned in. And I hope that going forwards, we'll take the nuggets of wisdom that were dispensed by the four speakers tonight and apply them going forwards to helping to preserve the legacy of Taylor Hall through COVID and beyond. So thanks again for attending.
Rashan.
Yes, Mr. Martin?
We don't end without the sartorial.
My singing is unfortunately not up to par. I'm afraid I'll make people's ears bleed.
Sean and his skills should be here, man.
Dexroy can lead.
Yeah. Yes, Mr.
Dexroy, you can lead that. I forget the keys and thing.
One last thing though, when it comes to revolutionary fervor, again, it's Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall. We can remember 2004 with Damian Crawford, even with the 1999 gas riots and 2010 12 with Crystal Tomlinson and Pampy, Daniel Wilson. Taylor's always at the forefront of the revolutionary fervor, and we must keep that up.
All right, so
if you're going to mention those, don't leave out my wife. She was tear gassed in front of Jamaica House on behalf of Walter Rodney.
Walter Rodney riots, yes.
Yes. I think you
right,
still
so
having
on that
effect.
note, we're actually have a request from Mr. Martin to lead the sartorial and possibly a chant or two afterwards. So, Mr. Martin, turn over to you.
We actually have a power outage.
Oh,
right.
Power outage in all? All right. So, Dev, as the former chair, do the count
I
off.
love you too.
No, Dev, do the count off and I'll sing.
Sartorial after 5, 10.
Taylor is the hall of halls of every creed or race. No matter what the difference is, Taylor takes first place. Taylor Hall, Taylor Hall, Taylor Hall, Taylor Hall will always answer to the call. Taylor Hall, Taylor Hall will conquer all. Whenever Taylor meets the foe, we never faint nor let our hearts on glorious victory set. To conquer on we go. Taylor Hall,
Taylor Hall,
Taylor Hall, Taylor Hall will always answer to the call. Taylor Hall, Taylor Hall will conquer all. I was hoping to hear Dev and Mr. O with the male part of it.
Yes.
They say, Hall call.
Yes.
After Taylor, no the Hall.
No Hall.
Taylor. Great. Tayloria. Hall of Halls forever. Yo.
After church service, panel discussion.
Yes.
All right, so
big up to all the people I saw on YouTube. Shamar Marshall, my contemporary, big up yourself, and others. Carl McGrath, former hall chair, I saw you. Big up yourself.
all right, so again, thank you to everyone, all the panelists. Thanks in particular to Mr. Martin for that lovely sartorial, much better than I could ever hope to do, believe me. So thanks for attending again. We're sincerely appreciative of you taking the time out to come and speak with us on these matters. And we are in your debt. We're incredibly grateful, and honestly, words can't really capture the sheer immensity of the knowledge and experiences that you've shared with us tonight. So thanks again, and all the best going forwards.
All the best for the rest of the week. May you have a successful Founders Week.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
All right, bye, guys.
Lisa, good appeared. My God.